How's it going, fellas? It's Bill Macross here, February 23rd, 2020. So a few quick updates. You notice I had some intro music, and just like the only person who responded to the request of, would you like to see something sounding more metal or a synthwave type of intro music? They responded, heavy metal. Clearly that's exactly what you got. But I didn't actually write that song just for the purpose of it being intro music. It's just one of the songs that I wrote for my music project, I suppose. So I think what I'm going to do is just cycle in various songs for my intro music here, and most of it will probably be more heavy metal type music. Additionally, I've started streaming myself as I make this music on DLive, probably once a week or so is what you could expect. I'll leave a link for anybody who's interested in that. I'm writing and playing and mixing and doing everything with all this music anyway, so I figured it was no skin off my teeth to record or stream myself doing it, rather. So, additionally, I've thought about where this channel really should be going. I got a comment a while back on my communitarianism video that went along the lines of communitarianism being the paleo part of paleoconservative, and I really liked that comment. And if I remember correctly, the person who commented it had a JoJo avatar, so big props to that. I think where I'd like this channel to go is to bring forth some of the deeper ideas between what differentiates paleoconservatism from modern neoconservatism, fusionism, Reagan coalition-esque conservative Inc. type ideas, because the more I watch the mainstream conservative media bear its flesh before me, the more I really realize that the old right paleoconservative framework has about as much in common with neoconservatism as it has in common with Jewish Bolshevism or something along those lines that you see in Bernie Sanders on the left wing in America now. And I think most of you watching are probably aware of how incompatible neoconservatism is with paleoconservatism. But I think what I would like to do with this channel, at least in large part, is to explore deeper explanations into where and how these worldviews have diverged in such stark fashion. But I've gone on for 3.5 minutes now. So let's really get into what today's video is about. It's about Organicism. So Organicism begins by asking the question, is it the material composition or the organization of the parts that creates an ecosystem, whether it be literally a biological ecosystem or analogous to any other organized system? Originally, Organicism was conjured as a more philosophical explanation for the organic, biologic, ecological system, at large, but it can be extended to many other, I suppose, not modes of thought, but to other areas of application. So Organicism's essential thesis would be that it's not the atomic machinations that define a substance and its qualities, but rather it is the functional relationship that said substance has with the other substances around it that define it. This is rejecting vitalism and monism. However, Organicism also rejects the idea that some unseen force in top-down fashion maintains absolute control over the constituent parts. Monism would also see to it that the only complete entity there is would be the entire universe at large, which Organicism also rejects. There is not this conscious effort being applied by the part to the parts, rather by the whole. It's just that the relationship to the other parts within the whole is what defines the parts. And of the many inexplicable phenomena that the reductionist materialist view of modern science cannot solve, Organicism can fill in the gaps. There is not necessarily a spiritual component of Organicism, as at its very center it merely seeks to define substances in terms of relationships to other substances, as opposed to defining only the atomic qualities of the substance itself, as if the substance existed as is in a vacuum. Think, for instance, is it the atomic composition of a sea turtle and the atomic composition of a box jellyfish that defines the relationship between them as the sea turtle is able to consume the box jellyfish without being harmed by the stingers of the box jellyfish? Or is it the fact that the sea turtle is capable of eating the box jellyfish without being harmed that defines, or at least in part, defines that aspect of the sea turtle and its, you know, and its relationship with everything else in its surrounding environment? Ultimately, this is the point of the philosophy of organicism. Many, you know, the very, very early philosophical systems, the ones that have been dissected and reconfigured in Frankenstein-esque fashion to create the failing systems of social organization we see today, completely neglected the relational aspect of substances and instead focused solely on their own qualities. What is a brown bear if not a creature that eats fawn and berries and requires a cave to hibernate in every winter? What is a clownfish if not a creature that requires the sea anemone's presence for protection and shelter? And what is the sea anemone without the clownfish to clean it, if I remember how Finding Nemo went properly? What is a blue jay if not a creature that weaves twigs together to make a nest? These questions may seem like very easy examples, and admittedly they are, but these relationships extend far beyond the local ecological food chain requiring inorganic components. Chickens eat stones to carry in their gizzards to facilitate digestion. And there are an infinite number of other relational definitions between not even just organisms, but between inorganic elements as well. Now, no sane person would deny that bears need a cave to hibernate in, clownfish needs sea anemone, predator needs prey, etc. Everybody seems completely willing to agree on this circle of life type mantra when it comes to watching nature take its course upon itself as we, the supposed ascendant species, sit in our living room eating popcorn like watching a movie. But to pretend as if this view of the world that substances are better explained by their relationships to other substances than they are by the expression of their own qualities in a vacuum doesn't apply to the socio-political realm of mankind would be absurd. Now, I'm certain it is obvious to everyone watching my channel now that the post-industrial, postmodern, developed 21st century world, or whatever you would like to call it, is rotting from the inside out. One of the most striking features of this world is that of atomized individualism. And this exists on both sides of the mainstream political dichotomy. Republicans jerk themselves off about rugged individualism and this watered-down, libertarian, just leave me alone mentality. And I know that this may strike at a unpleasant chord with some of the Republican conservatives, etc., watching this video. As somebody who lives on a piece of property fixated between the woods and a cow pasture, who has a small chicken farm and a garden, and who considers himself to be, at least relative to the modern world, highly self-sufficient. I understand this desire for rugged individualism, but this is not to be interpreted as I am the sole individual, every man is an island type of mentality. There is a greater community around me, and I recognize that I am a part of a greater whole that is the community that I exist within. You don't have to have very close neighbors to be a part of a greater community. And furthermore, the Democratic Party is fixated on securing as many civil liberties for as many individual people as possible. They just do it by groups at a time, which frankly is far more efficient. But both sides of what is essentially this mono party have situated at the very center of their belief system is this idea that the individual person with all of these self-described qualities one would give themselves is the core unit of society. And this is honestly one of the biggest lies you could ever tell. It's clear that this mode of thought has brought nothing but self-imposed suffering, and I don't think I really need to go into the details to prove that at this point. I think everybody watching implicitly understands that the world we live in, insofar as we can see the total collapse of relational connections we see around us, the ruin of family, community, society, and the nation, is crumbling around us in real time. If Organicism states that it is not the material composition that defines the system, but rather it is the arrangement of the pieces of the system within it that define it, it would stand to reason that no single person can be let off as being an atomized individual. Rather, the relationships between each person within the system that defines the system itself. Every single component has relation to the other components, and this is what determines the quality and functionality of the system, whether it be a machine full of gears, an ecological food chain, or a social network. I know that was quite a mouthful, I'm certain, but it is probably the most explicit way that I can explain it without omitting certain pieces of the details that are necessary. So we can extrapolate this idea to the extent of it is not only to pursue your own happiness, your own personal goals, your own, or to fulfill your own desires that is the ultimate good of the greater social network. And I know a lot of people would probably say, oh, well, of course it's not all about yourself. Of course you have to think about other people. But nobody actually behaves like this. Nobody actually behaves in a way, well, I mean, there are people, but for the most part, we're not taught to behave this way. We're not taught to conduct ourselves on a greater social level in such a way as to create a better, more unified social fabric. We're taught to, at the extent, donate an hour of our time at the soup kitchen feeding homeless people, when instead what we should be doing is things like building communities and really, at the core root of it all, building families that are raised to, geared towards, and designed around creating a fully functional, healthy, relational, social community. It is not merely to say, I may be getting into some more seedy topics, and I'm sure at 35 subscribers, nobody's actually paying attention to my channel, thank God. But this would be the idea behind, or I guess this would be counter to the idea behind, I am a homosexual. I will find greater joy in expressing my homosexuality by engaging in a homosexual relationship and adopting some third world child from a different country, when it would be far greater for the social community around you to have a biologic family with, obviously a member of the opposite sex, and to raise a family like that. For what it's worth, a man like Elton John is somebody that I have a significant amount of respect for, being a homosexual, but still getting married to a woman and having kids with her and raising an actual family with her. Now, we can talk all day long about the moral vapidness of his homosexual behavior behind the closed doors, but at the end of the day, the man still did understand that it is far better for you to have a wife and have actual children of your own and build a family than it would be to just engage in debaucherous homosexual sex. I know a lot of the Christian religious people watching this channel would cry out against the behavior itself even still, and so would I, but at the end of the day, there is something to be respected by somebody who still has that understanding that building an actual family, regardless of your own immediate carnal physical desires that are going to make you personally as an individual happy, that is something to be respected. So, been going on for about 15 minutes now. I think this is a decent place to wrap up this video. If you liked this, if you like this topic, let me know in the comments section. I would be happy to get deeper into other topics, or to just, I guess, wax and wane philosophically upon certain topics further than I have, if anybody would be interested in that. But I think this is a decent cursory look at organicism and how it can be applied to the modern socio-economic, socio-political, not socio-economic so much, but the greater socio-political sphere, and how it's just absolutely failing around us. But anyway, that's going to wrap it up for this video before I continue to ramble on more and more. I've been watching a couple of my old videos, and I do find that when I'm not reading from a script that I wrote, to be precise, I do tend to ramble a little bit, and it does start to get incoherent. So I'm going to stop it here. looking at about 16 minutes, 16 and a half minutes with the outro music. So don't forget to like, subscribe if you like this video, share it with someone if you think they would resonate well with this kind of material. And aside from that, I will catch you guys later.